'Tis I, your old pal, King Chuck, and I'm back. For now. Sorry I was away for, almost 2 weeks. I haven't updated in 2 weeks due to the fact that I was not well. 2 weeks ago, Friday, I came home, I did some work around the old house, and lo and behold, I ended up with a really bad sore throat. So, anyway, of course, I nipped it in the bud. I started taking Zicam. I started taking every good medication that's out there. And, of course, I had to pay a visit to the old CVS and got some stuff. And, anyway, the good news was the sore throat was gone. Bad news, it had progressed on to becoming a cold. So I was coughing and hacking, green and brown shit for a couple of days, and I'm still coughing a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I nipped it in the old bud, and I feel much, much better. So I was going to talk about, I was going to give the Bee-otch of the day originally a couple of weeks ago to Sinclair, the company, one of the two companies that decided they didn't want to have anything to do with Jimmy Kimmel anymore because of the allegations that he made all this stuff about Charlie Kirk, and it turns out it was really a commentary on Trump, because Trump was asked by a reporter what he felt about Charlie Kirk, and he said maybe 4 words and then started talking about the Rose Garden Club. So, anyway, I want to give you a little story about Sinclair for a little bit. So, what happened was Sinclair was founded by a man named Julian Sinclair Smith. And what happened was he died, and his 4 sons took over ownership of the company. And one of them was his son, David. David is what we call a John, meaning that he loves to fuck prostitutes. Let me give you a little history lesson. Way back in 1996, David was so what happened was David purchased a prostitute from the streets of Baltimore, and apparently there was a prostitution sting going on in that city. So David was followed around. So what happened was he and the prostitute went into a company vehicle that was actually owned by Sinclair, and their station in Baltimore, which is their home market, and it was actually the flagship station of the whole company, WBFF Fox 45. So what happened was, an undercover cop saw the prostitute going into this vehicle. It was a Mercedes-Benz, and David was driving, and he was swerving around the road because what happened was the prostitute was sucking his dick. And David couldn't drive and orgasm at the same time, so cop pulled him over. He had his dick out. He was in trouble. And David spent the night in prison. Now, what happened next was David made a plea deal with the authorities, and the plea deal went a little something like this. David decided. So what happened was David plea dealed with the cops, with the judge actually, and the plea deal was that he would he would avoid any jail time. He avoided jail time. So this is what he did. He ended up... it looks like there was an accident here. Uh-oh. So anyway, David made a deal with the judge. The judge told him, okay, community service. And guess what the choice of community service was? It was that David could, he chose to make some news stories that aired on WBFF TV during their newscasts about the police department. And the cop said, okay, no problem. The judge said, hey, no problem. So this is what happened. David had nothing to do with these news stories. It was business as usual for David. All he had to do was basically watch what everyone was doing. Just supervise what people were doing. And his reporters and anchors, everybody, all had to do the community service for him. It's like, what the fuck? So anyway, the rest of the story was David. So basically, he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything to be punished. And what happened was at least one reporter for the station quit because, she didn't want to work for John. And what happened was, I'll bet you a few folks were really hoping that WBFF and Sinclair Media Group, Sinclair Broadcast Group, would die and fall into flames because of all this. Well, guess what happened? Sinclair actually only got bigger from there on. And here's the reason why. A couple of reasons. Number one, that very same year, 1996, the Telecommunications Act was passed. And it allowed Sinclair to grow hand over fist. But another thing happened. In a couple of years previous, 1987, the FCC under Reagan demolished and abolished the Fairness Doctrine, and it allowed media companies like Sinclair and Fox to be one-sided with their news stories. They didn't even have to report the truth anymore, folks. They just simply stood up and told everyone that the right-wing way was the best way. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, this is wrong, folks, And Sinclair, not only that, they had all these shell companies so they can even buy more stations. And of course, one of them, because Sinclair is a publicly traded company, and then on top of that, on top of Sinclair being a publicly traded company, that's controlled by the Smith family, you have another company, they own another company called, they have a couple of other companies, and one of them is called Cunningham Broadcasting, which they own outright. And Cunningham happened to be the maiden name of Julian Smith's wife and the Smith kids' father. So that's kind of what it all boiled down to at the end of the day. It was a deal to basically make Sinclair a bigger company. And people like David Smith, well, he'd spend a couple of hours in prison. No deal. No big deal for him. And yet, there's people who've done lesser things, and they're still in prison. So anyway, I I think I know exactly why Jimmy Kimmel was brought back to Sinclair and Nexstar stations. Nexstar, of course, is in the middle of a big merger deal with Tegna, the old Cunningham Broadcasting. Of course, Tegna is the mixing of the letters of Cunningham. So this is what's going on. So the story is Tegna, so what's going on, basically, is they are trying to merge for $6.2 billion. And what happened was ABC, I think, called them up and simply said this. They basically said to them, look, it says straight up in the contract, you cannot cherry pick programming. The days of cherry picking program ended a long time ago. And it was true. There were a lot of shows. There was, basically what happened was back in the olden days of broadcasting, a lot of well-known TV shows got cherry picked off. Some TV stations would cherry pick programs because maybe the viewers didn't like it, maybe the owners didn't like it. I remembered when I was a kid, actually long before I was born, get this, the NBC affiliate where I grew up in Traverse City, 7 and 4, get this, they wouldn't even air the Today Show. And the reason why they chose not to air Today was because they felt that nobody watched TV in the morning. The guy who owned 7 and 4, his name was Les Biederman. He was also the founder of WTCM Radio. Les Biederman was a radio guy through and through. And rumor even had it that Les Biederman felt that if he aired the Today Show, it would lower the ratings of his radio stations. He didn't want to compete with himself. But I think I knew what NBC did to get him to air the Today Show. In 1963, the Today Show did a live remote from, of all places, Interlaken. And there were a lot, and of course, 7 and 4 was off the air. And they decided, and I guess people started saying, hey, get the Today Show on the air now. And finally, they bowed to temptation. But it wasn't just 7 and 4, and not only that, 7 and 4 also signed off the air at 12:30 at night. And they were the only NBC affiliate to do so, which meant that people in northern Michigan got to miss out on the last half hour of The Tonight Show. Because originally, The Tonight Show, NBC allowed stations to sign off. If they carried The Tonight Show, they had the option of carrying the first 30 minutes or the first hour or all 90 minutes. It was up to them. But by the 60s, only 7 and 4 was left, only carrying the first 60 of The Tonight Show. But that changed, obviously, because, once again, NBC, I think, pressured 7 and 4 to get their head out of their ass. Yeah, Les Biederman even admitted years later he was not a great station owner at all. And I also loved the story about how he sold 7 and 4. So it turned out that there was U.S. Tobacco. And in the late 70s, they were smack dab in the middle of a hostile takeover by an Australian firm. Biederman actually told U.S. Tobacco, if you buy my TV station, guess what's going to happen? If you buy my TV station, it will get the Australians off your back because a foreign entity cannot own a TV station. And it worked. U.S. Tobacco owned 7 and 4, I think, for 5 years. And then it was sold to Beam Broadcasting and then a couple of other companies here and there. And now it's owned tragically by Sinclair. And sometimes I have to wonder what's a worse company. A company that likes to suppress First Amendment rights, or a company that kills people because they make a product that's been killing people for generations. It's like 7 to 4 never really had a great owner. Seriously. Man. But anyway, speaking of 7 to 4, there are rumors going around that Maya Angelou, she was the lead female news anchor at the station, was fired because she badmouthed Sinclair for what they did to Jimmy Kimmel. And yeah, and it even says it on her I think LinkedIn profile that she left the station last month and is now on the beach. So I'm really hoping, if she did get fired from 7 to 4, she'll be back. She will definitely be back on her feet. So there is a rumor going around that ABC said to these companies, look, cherry picking is wrong. If you're an ABC affiliate, you need to carry the whole network. And if you're going to take off a show for whatever reason, let us know. And we'll find another station to carry it. So what happened was the station so this is what happened. ABC told the two companies, you got some major sporting events coming up. If you don't put Kimmel back on the air, we are going to make sure that you do not air any of our sporting events. And of course, here in Michigan, that meant, a couple of weeks ago, there was a U of M game. And then there was of course, the Detroit Tigers played Cleveland a few weeks ago. We won. And of course, now we're one game away of advancing into the playoffs. I hope they do. Turk Skubal at the mound. And then on Friday at, I think it's 4:30 in Seattle. They better win it, boys. Win it. And then, on top of that, there was Monday Night Football. Detroit Lions played a few weeks ago. So just imagine that, 29-8 in Traverse City, Channel 13 here in Grand Rapids, and Channel 53 in Lansing were not allowed to air these games. There would be a lot of hell to pay. Plain and simple. So, folks, and I agree, if things got even worse from there on, I would imagine that, and don't get me wrong, ABC, the networks have pulled their affiliations from from their affiliates and give it to others. I mean, it's nothing new, folks. It's been going on for years because, there's a lot of pissing matches between the networks and their affiliates. But yeah, I can tell you right now, just imagine if these games didn't air locally. There would probably be some boycotts, and if I was an advertiser, I would not want to put my money into these stations, so on and so on. And then on top of that, folks, we have the right as human citizens, as citizens of planet Earth, to say whatever we want about Trump. I don't give a flying fart about, the fact that, look, folks, making fun of the President of the United States is nothing new. Late night comedians have been doing this, since television was invented. We all have the human right to talk shit about the president and make fun of him. And Trump has no sense of humor whatsoever. And yet here he is going on his Truth Social, attacking, attacking everybody he wants to attack. because he's an asshole. And now, look at what's going on. We have our government shut down. We're closed. And the reason why, I'll tell you, I think I know why, folks. It's because Donald Trump is doing, he's lying to us. He's telling everyone that the real problem we have here in America are immigrants and transgender people. We're giving them health care. Oh, bullshit. I'll tell you the real reason why. It's because of the fact that, I'll tell you why, folks. It's because Mike Johnson was supposed to swear in this woman who won the she won by a huge margin in southern Arizona. Grijalda is her name, Adelia Grijalda, and Mike didn't want to swear her in. And the reason why was because she would be the deciding signature to petition the government to release all the Epstein files. And guess what, folks? A lot of people are on there. And look at what happened the other day regarding Caroline Leavitt. She was asked a ton of questions and she balked on all of them. She wanted to start a pissy fit. She is a cunt. I am tired, folks, of seeing people say that the real problem here in America are colored, brown-skinned people. The real problem we have here is the wealthy. And Donald Trump is giving them tax breaks. He's giving them a kiss on the ass here and there. And meanwhile, people are now having to work harder just to afford essentials. Healthcare is going up, and as I mentioned not too long ago, the brand of coffee I buy at the grocery store has gone up $5 a sack since Trump became president. Prices are not going down, folks. And now we're doing, the government's doing everything in their power to protect this convicted felon who's now running our country. He doesn't care about you or me or anyone else. I mean, he talks a lot about trade deals. He's not getting shit done. He claims that he's getting things done right overseas with Hamas, and I don't understand, folks. I don't understand. He is a sack of shit who says that he's against censorship, but guess what? His idea of government censorship is when social media censors people for lying. They want to spread lies that vaccines cause autism. They do not. They cause, and now Donald Trump is crying that Tylenol causes autism. People have been taking Tylenol for generations. And meanwhile, I remembered when Biden was president. One of the last things that happened when he was president was they did their own research on autism, and they found a link between autism and homemade infant formula. My mother gave me homemade infant formula when I was a kid, and I believe that caused my autism. My parents were cheap. My mom wouldn't breastfeed me because she was a smoker. And obviously, my parents went the cheap route because, my mother had an high school education. My dad did not. He was a dropout. And, my mom worked multiple jobs when I was growing up. She did everything from working as a secretary at a couple places to working at a gas station. She worked as a house cleaner. She even worked on the floor at a machine shop that her step-family owned. And unfortunately, because my parents were so frugal in raising me, it caused a negative effect on my upbringing. And that was the fact that my mom and dad, my parents gave me homemade infant formula, and doctors have long said for years and years, don't do that. They played Russian roulette with me, and guess who lost? Me. And throughout my school years, I was bullied. I didn't fit in at all. I had very few good friends. And even now in Grand Rapids, I've been here for 23 years. I have very little friends, and some people have bullied me. And it's like, I can go on and on, folks. I know. You see, I know how it feels to be autistic. But RFK Jr. does not, because he's a crackhead who does, who is not like the other Kennedys. I mean, he should not hold any public office, plain and simple. And I can't believe that, Trump has been president again for how many months now? 10 months, almost 10 months. And this is what we've gotten to. A government shutdown. And I think it's going to be they're going to probably try to put a gun to the head of the Democrats and say they're wrong. But folks, we need, this is scary shit, folks. I mean, Mike Johnson is not our friend. And so is Donald Trump. These people aren't our friends. They were Johnson was quick to get in, any Republican into the House to pass that big bad bill that has screwed a lot of people over. But people need to look at the big picture. The real problem we have here in America is not brown-skinned people. We need to focus on what we can do as a society to get shit right. And, as my late friend Dave Barber once said about the Republican Party, they only care about the peanuts while the elephants walk by. And because of this, because of the shit that's going on right now, we got people who don't have health care. But hey, the wealthy, they get to play and party and have fun. They get to go on vacation every other day. I mean, I'll never understand why people vote Republican, especially hardworking Americans. People like my dad, but then again, he was like I said, high school dropout. He was a high school dropout, and he watches Fox News day in, day out. And in a way, he's my guinea pig. He doesn't know better. I tried to tell him sometimes, and he doesn't care. But that's the way, that's the way he is, and that's who mega people are. Very self-centered. Very narcissistic. But anyway, another thing too. Oh, by the way, I love this. Remember, I was recently telling you about the congressman here in Michigan from Oxford, Shapiro. He was the guy that wants to pass a law here in Michigan outlawing internet porn. Oh my God, get this. Rumor has it that he actually was found recently to have some profile on a fetish site. Oh my God. and he's denying it. And it's like, okay, dude, I wish it was. I hope it is true. But likely it is fake. But I also read somewhere that there was an ICE raid at a strip club in Texas. And, folks, the first thing that came to my mind, obviously, was Project 2025. That's what Trump wants. He wants to make it law. He wants to make it tougher for anybody to go to a strip club. Folks, folks, I love girls. Okay? I love women, and I respect women. I haven't been on a date in over a year. And I was dating somebody over a year ago, and, she started to ghost me. And, I've tried real hard to be with the right person myself. I don't like, the big thing, I'm trying not to date are moms. And I know I'm 44 years old, and there really isn't a whole lot of people around my age anymore women my age who aren't moms. So that's kind of a difficult situation there. But, and that's the thing. I don't like, I told you the horrible story about my cousin and how, and my aunt who passed away a few years ago who who ended up marrying somebody who ended up beating the crap out of her and making bad decisions and all that crap. And then I'm like, yeah. And then she went back to dating the guy that she dumped for this loser. And what ended up happening is she had to choose between helping her son fix his busted car or pay the mortgage. And so the guy ended up paying him the money to fix his car, and she never heard from him again. It's like, I understand, sometimes children are a splitting image of their fathers, and I don't like that, But the reality is, this is why I love strip clubs. And, it's funny how a lot of Republicans love strip clubs, but it's the Republican Party that wants to shut them all down. They want you to feel that if you go to a strip club, you're going to hell. But I'll tell you this, folks. This is why if I could probably, people need to go to the strip clubs once in a while. Don't be afraid. If you're single and you're, the dating situation ain't working for you, strip clubs are not a bad place. But it sucks that here in Grand Rapids nearly 20 years ago, it was outlawed. I went to a strip club in Muskegon called Odyssey not horribly long ago. And I actually talked to somebody there who actually lives in Grand Rapids. She worked at the bikini clubs there, and nobody goes to them. The point is, folks, is that Grand Rapids, they were like, yeah, it's going to lower the crime rate here in Grand Rapids. It's gone up tremendously. And not only that, you got guys who put their camera, they have cell phone cameras, and they put it under girls' skirts. And people left and right have been busted. The thing is, folks, is that this needs to stop. This madness against, it's like, yeah, let's put a gun in everyone's pocket. But, we can't look at porn. That's what Republicans are all about. Violence good, sex bad. Universal health care bad, and, forcing people to die is good. And look at Pope Leo. He was right when he said that if you're pro-life, if you call yourself pro-life and you spit on foreigners and immigrants, then you're not pro-life. And I agree with him. As a matter of fact, let me tell you what happened to me on Sunday. Sunday, I paid a visit to my mother. It was her birthday celebration, and driving home on 44th Street near Breton, there were dozens and dozens of people lined up on 44th Street holding anti-abortion signs. Abortion kills children. And some of them were in Spanish because some of them were indeed Hispanic. And guess what they got from me? The bird. It's true. If you call yourself anti-abortion and yet you think that everyone deserves to have a gun and you're into Trump and all that, you're an asshole. Sorry, not sorry. And the rest of the story goes like this, folks. You know, all I can say right now is don't look at me. I never voted Republican in my life. As somebody who was screwed over by his former boss for many years, and I had to fend for myself, it's tough. It's tough out there. And all I can say is, we as human citizens need to take a more active role in politics. I mean, it won't, some people are like, oh, Trump is president. It won't be funny if you lose your job and then you lose your home. You won't be, you're probably going to have to use EBT to buy food or any of that stuff. And that's what Trump's doing. He's basically telling hardworking Americans, you're going to be poor because I screwed you over. He is a snake oil salesman through and through. And I hope to God that, look, folks, the midterms are a year away. We need to take a very active role in telling Donald Trump the jig is up. The only person on this earth that needs to be censored is him. Okay, folks, I'm done. Good day. Good luck. Have a great day, everyone. And if you got a cold, do yourself a favor, get some rest.